If you are starting the newsletter or an email list and you want to get your first 1,000 subscribers quickly, but you don't know where to start or what to do, this video is for you. This is the ultimate guide on how to pick a niche, start your newsletter, and get your first 1,000 subscribers quickly. I've done it myself, and I've helped hundreds of students do the same, and I'll break down the process step by step in this video. So I'll jump into the presentation I shared. What I'll also do for those who want to save this and read this later and use the resources inside is I'll put a link to this presentation down in the video description below. So this is going to be a long video, but it should be the most valuable video you'll ever watch on how to get your first 1,000 newsletter subscribers or your first 1,000 subscribers for your email list. It's going to be separated into 3 different parts. How to pick a lucrative niche and start your newsletter is part 1. How to get your first 100 subscribers and validate your idea is part 2. And then how to go from 100 to over 1,000 subscribers and more is part number 3. And we're going to cover a lot of information in this. And it's also going to be helpful if you already have a niche. If you have your niche, maybe if you've got a couple hundred subscribers, this is still going to help you. The first thing we'll talk about is that picking the right niche and offer make growing and monetizing your newsletter 10 times easier. It's much harder to get your first 1,000 subscribers if you don't have a clear niche and a clear way that you help that niche. And so that's what I'll start with right now. To pick a lucrative niche, you either want to be hyper scale or hyper niche. You don't want to be in between. Advertisers want to work with a hyper scale newsletter or creator that has the ability to reach millions or tens of millions of people when they sponsor that newsletter or creator. Or advertisers want hyper niche, the ability to reach a targeted high value audience through that newsletter or that creator's audience. Hyperscale allows your content to appeal to a broad market of millions or tens of millions of people, and hyper niche allows you to build a small high value audience that's easier to sell your products to and easier to sell high CPM sponsorship. CPMs means cost per 1,000 impressions, so a higher sponsorship rate if you have a hyper niche newsletter or email list. If you want to go the hyperscale route, you need a total addressable market of at least 50 to 100 million people. Your content has to appeal to a lot of people so you can build a large audience over time. The hyper niche route, your audience total addressable market can be as low as just 50 or 100,000 people, but they need to be valuable people that you can monetize. That said, hyper niches are not always that small. You can still have a hyper niche newsletter that appeals to millions of people. Let me show you this through some examples. First, we'll start with hyper scale newsletters. One of the fastest growing newsletters in the world is called 1440. It basically tells you the daily news in a comprehensive way in a 5-minute read, and it focuses on just fact-based, unbiased reporting. They have 4.5 million subscribers, and they do over 20 million in revenue per year. Another cool newsletter is called Word Daily. It sends you a new word every day so you can expand your vocabulary. They get north of 58 million opens per month. Then there's Morning Brew, which if you're in the newsletter world, you've probably heard of them. Morning Brew was acquired for $75 million in 2020. They have over 4 million subscribers, and they basically deliver business news to professionals, and that news is focused on finance, business, tech, stuff like that. A cool example from my friend Grant is called The 92. It's a free weekly newsletter that basically shares nostalgia and fun facts for 90 kids. So it kind of helps you relive your childhood, and this newsletter has north of 140,000 subscribers. Hyper niche examples are a little bit different. A great newsletter that I've seen do very well is called The Wolf of Franchises. It helps people who want to buy a franchise or people who own a franchise either find and buy that franchise or grow their franchise business. There's Senior Housing News, which covers the industry of senior housing, nursing homes, stuff like that. Imaging Wire is a newsletter for radiology professionals, doctors, nurses in that industry. Football Guys helps people win more at fantasy football and dominate their leagues. Tiny Money is a personal finance newsletter focused on people living in Charlotte, North Carolina. And then Industry Dive is a B2B media company that has over 30 different newsletters. They have north of 16 million subscribers, and they were acquired for $500 million a couple years ago. So there's tons of hyper niche examples. And for most people who are just starting their newsletter or email list, I highly recommend hyper niche, because by narrowing down who your content is for, you stand out more and can actually grow fast. Most newsletters fail because they try and be everything to everyone, and they end up being nothing to no one. I know a couple other reasons to go hyper niche is that you can get sponsors and advertisers with just 5 to 10,000 subscribers or less. It's much easier to sell a product or a service to your hyper niche audience. There's endless untapped niches out there, and there's way less competition. So how do we pick a lucrative niche? Well, there's 4 things that you should consider when picking your niche, whether it's hyperscale, hyper niche. First is, what skills, experiences, or interests do you have? What do you actually know and care about? Then, is this a high need audience? Is this audience growing? Is the topic this audience cares about trending? The faster the growth and the larger the audience could be better. Is this audience valuable to advertisers who will sponsor your newsletter? How many advertisers are there in this space? What are the ad rates that they pay? And then finally, does this audience buy some type of information, community, educational product, course, or just something that you can sell them, whether that's a product you're going to create or a product or service that you already have? At the center or at the intersection of those four things is the niche that you should pick. And one of the best ways to pick a niche is just to scratch your own itch and solve your own problem. The easiest, most straightforward way to create content is to write what you want to read. That lets you create what you know, and you'll figure out immediately whether or not that content is any good or not, okay? When you create what you need and that content solves a problem that you actually have, you can assess the quality of what you publish quickly and directly instead of by proxy or instead of trying to get feedback from someone else, okay? So if you're not sure about what your niche is, consider that Venn diagram. Most importantly, solve your own problem and scratch your own itch. This approach lets you fall in love with what you're creating. Now, the most common mistake people make when they pick a niche is they go way too broad. I recommend that you pick a niche and then go 1 to 3 levels deeper. Here's an example of that. And this is actually the example that my niche falls into. I have a newsletter in a company that helps people start, grow, and monetize their newsletters. And if I were to look at this, or my niche, for example, in a diagram like this, at the level 1 most broad niche at the top, it's just media companies. Then below media companies is newsletter first or newsletter focused media companies. And then even below that is how to grow newsletters. And so at level 1, we have a large potential audience, but we also have a potentially low subscriber lifetime value. And as we go down, our potential audience gets smaller, but our subscriber lifetime value increases, so we make more money from each subscriber on our email list. For example, let's say we care about fitness. Below fitness is bodybuilding, and then below bodybuilding is how to bodybuild on a keto diet. That would be a much better newsletter niche and topic than just fitness, which is way too broad. People don't really care about a broad fitness newsletter or email list. Then we have tech, then AI, then how salespeople can use AI agents to sell more. Much better newsletter topic than the broad topic of tech. Local news, things to do in your city, things to do in your city that are kid friendly. You're going to attract a higher value audience faster if you niche down 2 to 3 levels. Okay, once you figure out what that niche is and what level you're at, you need to create a category that is unique. You want to pick a topic to write about that you can be the best in the world at. And if you're not there yet, that's totally okay, because over time, as you publish content and your content is going to improve. I love this quote from Naval Ravikant, and it's a great framework for picking your niche and creating your category. Become the best in the world at what you do. Keep redefining what you do until this is true. This is called category design. And if you're starting a newsletter, you want to be in a category of one. You want to be unique. Now, that doesn't mean there's no other newsletters in the same niche or category as you. It's totally fine if there's other similar newsletters or creators out there. That's all good. This simply means that there are no other newsletters that do exactly what you do. That's how you stand out. And these are the rules of category design. Different is better than better. So you want to focus on how your content is different, not better than a competitor. It is better to be first than it is to be better. And if you can't be first in a category, you should set up a new category where you can be first. By creating a category, you will stand out and attract an audience faster. Even if you're not an expert yet or you're not a true leader in that category, you can become the best in the world at a narrow category that you define. Then once you do that, you can own the word, the phrase, or the idea in that category. And this is the most powerful concept in marketing, owning a word or phrase in the prospect's mind. This is a quote from Jay Clouse that describes this really well. He says, instead of building an audience, build an association with a specific word or idea. James Clear, Habits. Brene Brown, Vulnerability. Cody Sanchez, Boring Businesses. David Perel, Personal Monopoly. When you are associated with a specific word, phrase, idea, or movement, that connection spreads. As it spreads, it gets stronger. That association is what actually builds the audience in a very targeted audience. There's a lot of great newsletters that do this well. Anti-Citizen is owning that word that is also their brand, and it helps people build a sovereign life, get second passports and residencies. Anti-Citizen is owning that word or idea. This is a newsletter that helps people get second passports, legally reduce their tax liability, live a more sovereign life, and they've built a movement around this word in a very large business. James Clear owns the words habits, and he's built a very large publishing business around that. 1440 owns the idea of facts without motives, and they've built a huge newsletter from that idea. Car Dealership Guy has built a B2B media company for car dealers, and when you think of car dealers or news and insights around that, you go to Car Dealership Guy. ADHD Jesse, he has owned the word adult ADHD, and he's built a big publishing and media business around that concept. Justin Welsh owns the word solopreneur. The list goes on. Next, to pick a niche and design a category, we need to identify your job to be done. The job to be done simply means the value proposition of your content, the reason why people should actually subscribe and reach your newsletter. And it's important you have that, because you don't have a job to be done if you don't have a value proposition. There's no reason for someone actually to sign up and read your newsletter. So this is a foundation that we need to get out of the way. You got to think about what is the job that your newsletter is doing for your ideal reader. And you can bucket every great newsletter into the job that it's doing for readers. For example, Daily Dad helps me become a better dad. 1440 keeps me informed of just the facts. Football Guys helps me win more at fantasy football. Stratechery, rather, helps me understand what's happening in tech. You should find one job to be done that you can do better than anyone in the world. You don't have to be the best in the world right now, but you should strive to be. And I recommend you find your job to be done by answering these two questions. The first is, what is your market of one? Think of one person. What would that ideal market of one person find extremely interesting or useful? Number two, what is the concrete job that you're doing for that one person? How exactly are you going to help them fulfill their desires, reach their goals, and solve their problem? If you can answer those two questions in detail, you have a good understanding of your niche, your category, your offer, and your job to be done. You need to have a clear answer to both of those, because if you don't, you're not going to grow. Like Chanel says, a newsletter at its core helps the reader solve a problem. And if you're struggling to grow your newsletter or your email list, ask yourself, is the problem you're solving big enough? Here's a few tips to better answer these questions. Who is your market of one? Okay. Ideally, this is one real person. It could be a friend, a client, an employee, a reader you know, or even yourself or your past self. For example, the market of one for my newsletter was my first 2 employees, and I wrote my first 5 to 10 newsletter issues to teach them how to grow newsletters, which is what we do at my company, GrowLetter, to give them a step-by-step actionable guide on how to do that. And it turns out that was also actionable to a lot of other people who were not my first 2 employees. When you write to one real person, it makes the content that you create personal. Personal content helps you solve that person's specific problem. And what is personal is universal. The odds are millions of other people are also going to have that same problem, and you can solve it by creating personal content for one person. Tip number 2, you need to research and talk to your market of one. You should create a reader avatar document using the person or persona, describe them in detail, get on a phone call with them, ask them questions, and fill out a customer avatar worksheet like this. Like I mentioned before, the slides for this will be down below in the description, so you can check this out and fill it out on your own time. Go ahead and interview 3 to 5 people who you think are your market of one. Ask them questions like, where do you get your favorite content about this niche? What makes that content so good? If we could create the perfect newsletter for you, what would be in it and how would it help you? What are the questions or challenges are keeping you up at night or you're consistently talking with peers about? You're going to get good answers, and that's going to help you create way better content and position your newsletter as a valuable resource to your market of one. Okay. Tip number 3 is that you should not be vague. Your job to be done needs to be specific and tangible. Okay. It should be something that people would pay for, even though your newsletter is going to be free. If your job to be done is something like help me become smarter, make me happier, entertain me, inform me, that's way too vague. We need to get more exact and talk about exactly how we're going to help someone reach their goals, fulfill their desires, solve their problems, not some vague promise that you're not really going to deliver anyways. It's that simple. And to do this, it's going to be much easier if you're a hyper niche. And don't let that scare you, because most of these hyper niches are actually a lot bigger than you realize. Even if you appeal to just 0.1% of people globally, that's still 8 million people. That's a lot of people. So that's the framework for picking a niche and your job to be done. Part 2 is how you actually validate this idea, this niche, this promise that you have to readers, and get your first 100 subscribers before you even publish a newsletter issue. I know 100 subscribers doesn't sound like a lot, but to get to 1,000 subscribers or 10,000 subscribers, you have to get your first 100 first. And this is going to help you do that faster if you focus on these tactics I'm about to show you. Now, the best way to find your niche, refine your offer, and create the category that I just talked about is by publishing content. You don't want to overcomplicate it and research this for months or years. Just start publishing content and you'll get feedback on how you can improve that faster. This is really the best way to start. You don't need to have the perfect niche or the newsletter or a perfect newsletter before it goes live, because the reality is no matter how hard you work or how long you wait to publish the perfect thing, your first newsletter is going to suck, your first landing page is going to suck, your first social post is going to suck. That's just how it works. That's okay. You're only going to get better by doing. So I don't want you to let your ego and anxiety hold you back from starting. No one's going to remember your first newsletter, landing page, post, etc. in 3 months. You just need to get it out into the world so you can improve faster. This is Morning Brew's first newsletter back in 2014. If you pause this and read it, it's not very good. It's pretty basic and it looks ugly, okay? But later on, they improved it a ton and they sold their newsletter for $75 million a couple of years later in 2020. Go back and look at the first Joe Rogan podcast. It was almost unlistenable, but now it's one of the largest podcasts in the world. This is a newsletter that I was the first employee for called The Milk Road. We went from 0 to over 250,000 subscribers in in 10 months, and we were acquired for 7 figures in 10 months. And we started the Milk Road newsletter with a shitty logo like this that we built in Canva in a couple minutes. And it wasn't until we reached 100,000 subscribers where we actually rebranded the newsletter and built a better brand, a cooler logo, and a slick website. So we waited until then to actually add the fancy brand and all the details. Until we got to 100,000 subscribers, we just focused on growing the newsletter, writing the content, and monetizing it. Just the things that mattered most. So that's the point. Focus on what matters. I have this framework: write, grow, and sell. Write means to create and publish content. Grow means to get people to sign up and read that content on your newsletter or email list. And sell means to make money from your audience by either selling a sponsorship or selling some type of product to that audience. 99% of your time should be focused on that. You don't want to waste time on things like creating the perfect logo, finding the best name and domain name, designing a website that no one's even going to see yet, etc. Focus your time on writing, growing, and selling, and you're going to get there faster and be a lot more successful in the long run. So to do that, we're going to go back to what I mentioned before: validating your idea and getting your first 100 subscribers before you even launch, before you build a logo, a website, anything like that. And the first thing that we need to do that is just a way to collect email addresses. So we need to create a dead simple landing page. I'm not going to spend much time on this because you shouldn't either. This should take you 30 minutes or less. You just need a page to collect email addresses, okay? I recommend you do this with Beehive. I'll put a link down to sign up for Beehive below, and you can use it for free up to, I believe, 2,000 or 3,000 subscribers. Don't worry about making this landing page perfect now because you're going to change it later. You just need a simple landing page live so we can collect these email addresses. Step number 2 is to add call to actions everywhere. CTAs means call to actions, okay? This should take you about 50 minutes and it can help you add your first 1 to 10 subscribers. When you do this, you should think about all the different digital real estate that you own. Do you have a website already? Do you have an email signature? Do you have social media accounts? Do you have a Slack profile? Add a call to action for your newsletter in all of those areas, okay? Call to action on your website, email signature, social media bios, the private community profiles that you have. Don't worry about making the copy in this call to action perfect now. You're going to change it later. Just put a 1-sentence call to action for your newsletter. Here's what that looks like in my email bio. Now, it's important that you only add call to actions for things that you already have. You don't need to go out and create a new website to do this. Just focus on what you already have. All you need right now is this landing page. After you have this landing page and you add these call to actions, you're going to do a text announcement. You need to announce that you're starting a newsletter to your friends, family, and colleagues. This should take you about 30 minutes and get you your first 5 to 30 subscribers. You can do this over WhatsApp too. To start a newsletter, you need people to write for. It's so important that you don't skip this step. It's the best way to actually get those people to write for and to hold you accountable is by asking your friends and family to subscribe. Every successful newsletter that I've interviewed, like Morning Brew, The Hustle, Milk Road, and many more, started by asking friends and family to subscribe first, even though that wasn't scalable. Don't skip it, okay? It's going to hold you accountable and it's going to push you out of your comfort zone, which is a good thing because to build a successful newsletter in business, you're going to have to ask for a lot of things that push you out of your comfort zone and make you feel uncomfortable. You need to start doing that now. I know most of your friends and family probably don't care a lot about your newsletter topic. That's okay. Still ask them to sign up. Right now, you need traction and every single subscriber on your list matters, okay? You're not going to go out and get 100 or 1,000 subscribers overnight. We're going to focus on one at a time right now. Also, it's a really small ask for your friends and family. It takes 5 seconds to sign up. It's free. They can unsubscribe if they don't like it. So you're really not asking them for a lot. I want you to send a one-on-one text message to friends and family like this, okay? I won't read out all of this, but you can pause this video or download the slides below. Hey, name, I started the newsletter on this topic. 1 sentence about what it's about and helps readers. If that sounds interesting, sign up here and then link to your landing page. Here's an example of that. This is how Morning Brew got their first 100 plus subscribers. They went around in their college and talked to classes, and they asked the professor if they could talk to the class for 5 minutes before the lecture started. And then I believe Alex, one of the co-founders, talked about Morning Brew for 5 minutes, and then Austin went around the class and had them write their email address on a piece of paper like this, and then they manually put those email addresses onto their landing page to sign up, to have them sign up for the newsletter. They literally typed up email addresses word by word, signed them up on the landing page, and that's how they got their first couple hundred subscribers. This is how The Peak also got their first couple hundred subscribers. The Peak is a newsletter that sold for $3.7 million after 2 or 3 years of running it, and they did it all through, they did at least the initial part all through one-on-one messages. They asked their friends, anybody who might be interested, just to sign up for the newsletter. Step number 4 is to do an announcement on social media. You can also do this in about 30 minutes, and it's going to help you get you your first 10 to 50 subscribers. You should create an announcement post about your newsletter and publish it to all these social media profiles or accounts you have. Keep this short and simple. This post should look a lot like the text messages that you just sent to your friends and family. Here are the key things to include. You want to tell people that you started the newsletter and why, the name of the newsletter, the topic, who it's for, how it helps them, what people are going to get out of it, and you need to have a call to action to sign sign up and send people to your landing page. Here's a post template for that. And an example you can get access down below. Now, here's the important part of this step. Don't just post this and hope people are going to see it. You need to share this post with all the friends and family that you just texted. Ask those folks to like the post, comment on it, and repost it. If you get even just 10 people to do this or more, your announcement post is going to be seen by way more people and you're going to get more subscribers. This is one of the few opportunities in your life where you're going to be able to ask people to share something and have a good reason to do so. Anytime you announce a new product, a new newsletter, it's a great opportunity to ask people to help you and support you because it was just announced. They're way more likely to do it. Okay, so after you post this, immediately text your friends and family and ask them to share it. Step number 5 is called a newsletter teaser or a pre-CTA. Okay, this is going to help you add between 10 to 100 subscribers. Here's how it works. So after we've done those announcements before and we're planning to publish our newsletter in the next couple of days, you're going to post a teaser about what the first newsletter issue is about on social. It's called a pre-call to action. This is the teaser that I posted before my very first newsletter, and it helped my create your newsletter and learn. You will become an expert. Help me get my first 50 to 100 subscribers. Okay, I simply said a little bit of copy about the topic that I was writing about. So here it is. I spent the last 4 hours writing everything I know on how to make amazing Facebook ad copy and images, my copywriting formula, copy examples, etc. Get the deep dive in my newsletter tomorrow morning, link in bio. And then there's a link to my landing page in the bio, and people click to sign up and read that. Pre-CTAs are simple to post and extremely effective at converting your social followers into subscribers. Because of pre-CTAs, you can create fear of missing out on that content. People feel like they need to sign up so they can get access to it. It creates urgency to sign up and get access to the content before it's published, and curiosity to see what the newsletter content is about. Okay, you should post these pre-CTAs 48 hours to 8 hours before your newsletter is published. It doesn't matter exactly when, but somewhere in there. 24 hours before is the ideal spot, but if you do it before or later, that's fine too. And in the description below, there'll be 20 plus pre-CTA examples in the slides. Step number 6 is the warm email, and this is probably the fastest way to get a lot of subscribers very quickly when you're first starting. You should send an email to all of your contacts, your friends, your coworkers, your followers, connections, and this is going to help you get between 50 to 100 subscribers in one swoop. And once you have a newsletter live, you can start reaching out to people outside of your friends and family about subscribing. So the way you do this is just make a list of all your contacts, everybody in your phone, everybody in your email address books, all of your LinkedIn connections that you have an email for, all of your clients and customers. Even if you don't have a large network, this is going to be 200 to 500 plus people. And then write an email that tells them about your newsletter and why they should sign up. Here's an example of that from Scott. Okay, so he basically said, hey, I hope all's well. Here's my 2-second summary. I'm starting a badass newsletter that I hope you'll join. Click here to make it happen. You're getting this email because we've crossed paths during my journey. It's likely that you've helped me in some way. Perhaps you've been following me on LinkedIn or Instagram. Building off that momentum, I'm excited to introduce my free weekly newsletter. It's for this audience and it's going to help them do X, Y, Z. If you want to sign up, click below. That's what Scott sent, and it helped him get his first 100 plus subscribers. And you should do something similar. So quickly tell people about what your newsletter, tell them why they're getting this, tell them how it's going to help them, and then share a link to sign up. Here's a template of that you can download below. And then after you write this, of course, you got to send it. And there's 2 different ways to send it. You could just send one email at a time to all the contacts and customize the first name, or you could send it using Gmail's BCC feature. So that just allows you to send to a list of up to 100 people at a time, and they don't see who else was on that email chain. But you are going to get better deliverability and more signups of option number 1, but it does take a little bit longer. So pick what's best for you. 3 to 5 days later, after you send this email to, let's say, 100 to 1,000 people, you should send a follow-up email. And this should be short and simple. You could say something like, hey, name, I want to make sure you saw this. If it's not for you, no worries. Ignore this and I won't email you again. And then you could just put a line break, and then you could copy and paste that exact same email below just to make sure they saw it and have an opportunity to sign up. And that's it. I don't want you to cold email millions of people or thousands of people. That's not going to work. But if you want to get your first 100 subscribers quickly, doing a simple cold email like that takes you 30 minutes to an hour is going to help you a ton. By following those 6 steps, you can get your first 100 subscribers in 3 to 7 days with just a few hours of work. Okay. And it's super important because to get to 1,000 subscribers, you have to get to 100 subscribers first. Okay. Remember, every subscriber matters when you're in this range. It's really hard to get your first 1,000 subscribers. It's probably the hardest. It's a lot easier to go from 10,000 to 50,000 in my opinion. Don't skip this stuff. Okay. Even though it sounds not scalable, that's totally okay. It's still going to help. Now, this is the final part, part 3. This is how to go from 100 to 1,000 subscribers and more more organically without creating new content every day, even if you have no social following right now? First off, you got to keep this simple. Most people, when they start a newsletter, they do a bunch of market research, they read 100 other newsletters, they start writing drafts, they never post them, they wait for the perfect niche or the perfect marketing strategy. The smart person just publishes content and talks to readers, okay? If you do that over and over again, you will be successful. The place where you can get the most feedback and publish the most content in the fastest way is social media. This is the key to getting your first 1,000 subscribers and even your first 100,000 subscribers. Here's why it's so important. There's 4 different ways to grow your newsletter or your email list. You have social media, so LinkedIn, Instagram, X, etc. You have paid acquisition, Meta ads, Google ads. You have email, where you could do cross promotions of other newsletters. You could have a referral program, recommendations, etc. And then you have SEO, Google search, okay? By far, the best one to start with is social. All of these channels can work, but social is the best way to grow organically. Your content can be discovered. The subscriber quality is high. It's easy to share that content. It's scalable. You can reach eventually tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of followers and subscribers. It's very low cost and it's fast to get results. For example, if you wanted to do SEO, that's going to take you months or even years to rank for the keywords that you want to rank for. Now, which social platform is the best to grow your newsletter? There's a lot of options out there. There's really only 3 I would consider starting with. LinkedIn's best for the B2B and professional audiences. Twitter and X is good for audiences that care about news and sports and tech and business and politics too. And then Instagram is best for consumer audiences, but also it can work for B2B and professional audiences too. I would consider avoiding these to start with. YouTube is amazing. It just takes a ton of work. Facebook has little or no organic reach. Twitter or X is frankly really hard to start from zero, even though it can be a great platform. And then TikTok has a lot of platform risk and requires a lot of work to get started. What you're going to learn in a second is going to work for other platforms too, but I would consider starting with those 3 platforms that I recommend. It's also important that you only start with one social platform and then wait until you have at least 5,000 to 10,000 followers there to add another platform. Focus is key to getting results fast, and all of these platforms are distinct. And so if you try and master LinkedIn and Instagram at the same time, you're going to have a very difficult time doing so. So just pick one and focus on that until you get north of 10,000 followers there. And what we want to do with this one platform we pick is create what I call a social growth flywheel. This is where you create original newsletter content in your weekly newsletter. You repurpose that newsletter content to social media content, and that social media content gets you new subscribers. You basically create once and then distribute that content everywhere for more growth. This is the flywheel. Every newsletter that you write should generate 5 to 10 pieces of social content, and those 5 to 10 pieces of social content should generate hundreds and thousands of new subscribers. One newsletter can become 10 social posts. So from one newsletter, we could create a LinkedIn carousel, a Twitter thread, 4 tweets, 4 LinkedIn images, and more. One newsletter a week can create 5 social posts for one platform very easily, or one newsletter a week could create 5 social posts for 1 to 3 platforms. The point is, if you publish 50 newsletters a year and then you repurpose that into 5 of the same post on 2 platforms, that's over 500 posts per year, and that's how you grow. Volume and consistency is key to how you grow on social media. You need to have a quality social post 3 to 7 times per week, sometimes even more, consistently for months or years. That is how you create this snowball effect, where at first it's really hard. You're not getting many views or impressions, but as your views, followers, and impressions grow, the algorithm favors you, people continue to view and share your content, and it gets easier and easier. Here's exactly how I repurpose my social content. First is usually with LinkedIn carousels. Like I said, this can work for other formats too, but this is what I do. So I summarize my newsletter content into a carousel with 5 to 15 slides. So I have this newsletter I wrote on the left here about Apple Mail privacy protection, and then I summarize that into a LinkedIn carousel on the right. Cody Sanchez, many more people do this, Ben Muir, etc. I can also do the same with a Twitter thread or a long post. So I take that newsletter I wrote and I convert that into a post on Twitter. It's important that when you repurpose this, you have a really strong hook, which is the first 1 to 2 sentences of that post. You're going to have to cut a lot of unnecessary words or sections and break up your social post with different sections, bullets, and numbered list. Usually I'm removing about 20 to 40% of my newsletter content when it's posted on social, because it just has to be in a shorter format, and that's okay. We can also take a newsletter and turn it into 4 different images. So I like to take one section, a paragraph, an idea, or even just a line from my newsletter and turn that into a shorter posts. So this is a section for my newsletter, and then I turn that into a slightly shorter version for Twitter. We can do images. So I take that same section and I turn that into an image in a short text post on LinkedIn. And then we can do this on Instagram too. So we can repurpose our newsletter content into a carousel on Instagram that's 5 to 15 slides. We can repurpose our newsletter content or a section from our newsletter into a 1 to 2 minute video script that we film and post as a reel or a TikTok. You can also take a section or even an entire newsletter and repurpose that into an infographic that you can post to Instagram or other platforms. That's how it works. We create once and we distribute that everywhere. We don't just publish a newsletter and then never touch that content again. We have to repurpose that content elsewhere. So this is kind of like what my social content calendar looks like. Mine's a little bit different, but this is better for the sake of an example. Let's imagine we publish a newsletter on Monday, and on that same day, we're doing a post call to action, which I'll explain later. Then on Tuesday, we post a carousel and a thread. On Wednesday through Saturday, we're posting shorter bits of content through images and tweets. And then on Sunday, the day before our newsletter, we do a pre-call to action. So from one newsletter, we have a social post for every single day of the week. Create once, distribute forever. Doing this consistently is going to grow your following and social impressions, but that's not enough. Unfortunately, you need more than just following impressions. You need to convert those followers and views into email subscribers. And that's what I'll explain now. I'm going to talk about the 5 different ways to plug your newsletter on social media and convert those followers and views into email subscribers. Conversion to your newsletter or your email list all starts with your social profile. And you should think of your social profile like a landing page on social media. It's your opportunity to make a strong first impression, gain followers, subscribers, and customers. And you should optimize your social profile on whatever platform you might have, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, etc. You should optimize it like you would optimize a landing page. Your newsletter and how it helps people should be the focal point of this profile. So you want to get people who view your profile to click to your landing page. That's the number one objective. The next way to convert people to an email subscriber is in content or after content call to actions. You simply just need to add a call to action for your newsletter, either at the middle or the end of a post, a tweet, a thread, a carousel, a video, whatever it might be. If you're doing a longer post that's, let's say 500 words plus, or a video that's 5 minutes plus, this is definitely a must have. This could be on the last slide of a carousel on Instagram or LinkedIn. It could be as the final tweet of a thread. It could be in your LinkedIn post. It could be in your YouTube video, etc. The next way to get people to subscribe from social are pre-call to actions and post-call to actions. Here's how they work. A pre-call to action is where you tell people about what your newsletter covers about 24 hours before it's sent. So we covered this before, but I'll explain in a little bit more detail now. So here's an example of a teaser or a pre-call to action I posted for my newsletter. I said my results from Twitter ads last month, and then I shared some cool results. And then I said, if you want to see how I run Twitter ads for myself and 10 plus other newsletters, my Twitter guide drops tomorrow in my newsletter. Get it here. And then I link to my profile where people can click my profile, and there's a clear call to action for my newsletter in that profile. You can also do this on LinkedIn or on other places. So it creates FOMO, urgency, and curiosity to sign up. Pre-CTAs make it really easy to tell followers about your newsletter because you're just sharing what you're writing about, and then you're asking them to sign up for access. So it doesn't feel salesy or sleazy. You're just teasing what's going to be covered in the newsletter the next day. And if the followers are interested that you have, they are going to subscribe for more content. I highly recommend you do a pre-call to action once per week, 24 hours before your newsletter is published. You're going to get a lot more subscribers from pre-call to actions than you might imagine. Okay, sometimes I'll work for hours on like a long LinkedIn post or a thread or something. It might get me a couple dozen subscribers, and then I do a simple pre-call to action that takes me 5 minutes to write, and I get a couple hundred. Okay, these are extremely powerful. I've also put 30 or more examples of pre and post call to actions in these slides that you can download with the link in the description. Now the next way, post call to actions. You probably know what this means. It is a call to action for your newsletter after it was published. So you do this immediately after the newsletter is published or the next day. Now, these are less effective than pre-call to actions, but they still work. Here's an example from Justin Welsh. He said yesterday, 40,000 subscribers learned 4 lessons from $1 million in course sales. Here's the 4 lessons, and then there's a link to read the newsletter there. This is an example from Chanel. She said, I just hit publish on a deep dive about a creator making $300,000 per year from his newsletter without relying on social media. If you missed it, you can use the link in my profile, and I'll send you the deep dive. So there's a call to action to sign up from this pre or post CTA. Now, there's 2 ways to get signups from post CTAs. The first way is just to ask people to sign up for your newsletter to get access to that post. And then in your welcome email, you can include a link to your newsletter archive where readers can click to read the most recent issue. This is what Chanel does. So she talks about it. People sign up either through a link below this post or in her bio. And then after you sign up, you get her welcome email where there's a link to her most recent newsletter issues, and you can click to read the post that she just teased. The second way is to send people to an email gated page or article where they must enter their email address to get access to that content. This can be done very easily with Beehive. Okay, so this is what that may look like. We have a post, 25 ways to grow your newsletter, and it says the content's free, but you have to be subscribed to read it. If you want to set this up in Beehive, you would go to the post area and then select gated content. Here's an example from Tyler Dink. He says, our Series B fundraise announcement led to millions of free impressions, thousands of new users, hundreds of new investors. Here's how we did it. And then he links to that post where he talks about how to announce a fundraise. And then to actually read that post, you have to enter in your email address to actually read it. So he's collecting the email address for everyone who clicks and wants to read this. Okay. Method number 2 is going to lead to the most amount of subscribers. However, if you don't want to leave your post or your blog post email gated forever, you can remove that email gate about 24 hours after you publish the social post, because by then most people are already going to have seen and clicked that social post. I know it's simple, but don't miss out on the power of these pre and post call to actions because they work way better than you might imagine. You should set a calendar reminder to do one of each every single week. The next way to get subscribers from social is called comment to get. Okay, this is very simple. You're basically going to create some type of lead magnet or cool thing that you can give away to people who sign up to your newsletter, and you're going to create a post about it. And then you're going to ask people to like the post and comment a word to get that thing that you're giving away in exchange for an email address. So you can see an example right here. And then people comment that word. And then Daniel, the person who did this in this example, then DMs people that thing. And he doesn't DM them directly to the piece of content. He DMs them a link to a landing page where they need to subscribe to access that content. And then after they subscribe, they will gain immediate access to it. So that is how you get email subscribers from this. You don't send people directly to the thing. You send them to a landing page where they can enter their email address first to then get access to the thing. So we create this lead magnet in a landing page for it. We publish this post with a call to action to like and comment for access. If you're doing this on LinkedIn, make sure you mention that they need to follow you or be connected to actually receive that DM. And then you send DMs to those people to the landing page if they requested it. And then also comment on the reply too, just to make sure they saw that landing page. Okay. You don't have to create a custom landing page to do this. If you're using Beehive, you can just create a post and then you can email gate that post like I showed before. And you can send people a link to that post where they have to enter their email address to read it, just like Tyler did before. This can be done on Twitter too. This can also be done on Instagram. It's not just LinkedIn. It works across all those platforms. Okay. The fifth and final way to get subscribers from social is warm DMs. You should send a DM or a message to every new follower that you get or every follower that you already have. This works on Instagram, X, LinkedIn, and more. And it's really simple. You could say something like, hey, name, thanks for the follow. If you're looking for more content on how to do the thing that you teach, I share my best content in my free newsletter. Here's a link to sign up. This is a DM from the founder of SmartBear and some other companies too. And so he's built a multi-billion-dollar company, but he still sends these DMs to new followers because he wants more email subscribers. It's incredibly powerful, and a lot of people don't utilize this tactic. Now, the important thing here is this is a warm DM, not a cold DM. So if someone follows you, they're way more likely to sign up for your newsletter. If someone doesn't know you at all and doesn't follow you, don't DM them. This isn't going to work, but it works very well as a warm DM. And it's worth doing this manually or having a virtual assistant do this for you, especially if you're trying to get your first 1,000 subscribers. Doing things that don't scale is important. And this tactic can also scale later on through automation or a virtual assistant doing it for you. Now, what I don't want you to do is this. I don't want you to make your entire social growth strategy just call to actions and sales. You need to add value first. Only 5 to 10% of your posts should be dedicated call to actions like pre-CTAs, post-CTAs, or comment to get posts. You've probably heard of the book from Gary Vee or the concept of jab, jab, right hook. The idea is that you are adding value at least 80 or 90% of the time. That's 90% of your post or 80% of your post. And then 10 to 20% of your post are call to actions for your newsletter or for other things. If you just have all call to actions, you're not going to do well. Okay, so that's the content calendar. And by publishing social content 3 to 7 days per week consistently and using the 5 ways that I taught you to convert those followers into subscribers, you're going to take your newsletter from 100 subscribers to 1,000 subscribers and beyond. And that's it. I hope this was helpful. And I hope it's a video you come back to over time. If you want to read the slides and get the resources linked in the slides, the link will be in the description below.